Hello, BC Barbie. So this video is going to be about a particular topic, and while not inspired by a video I watched the other day from Adam Daniel Mizet, he certainly helped me tie it together succinctly. And the one I'm referring to, he titled Hogwash and Poppycock. Just call things what they are, essentially was the gist of the video. Well, identity politics is what they've been calling it. But what I think it ought to be called, what it really is identity theft. And that's what I want to talk about today in this particular video. So you've all heard of the divide and conquer tactic. What I think identity theft in the political forum on us as a society is being played out as is a divide and consume tactic. That's the cannibalistic theft of our actual identity. I'm going to give you several examples of what I mean by that, of what I've been seeing recently and in the past year or so. Starting with, you remember the monk debates that happened this summer across Canada, and David Frum, conservative Republican versus right-wing extremist Steve Bannon. Except David Frum's liberal centrist, in my opinion, not conservative at all. And yet this is what I'm seeing happening, is the liberals taking over our talking points. This is the identity theft I'm referring to. The next example would be, well, the endless attacks on Trump, how they're painting normal, average American ideals, capitalistic ideals, business ideals and pursuits, doing the right thing, patriotism, all those things that Trump stands up for and is making changes in policy around and enacting in his government. And they paint that as extremist, close to fascistic. It's just one more example. And one more reason why we hear so much about Trump in our Canadian media, especially in the mainstream. And whenever I try and bring up politics in Canada and talk with people, just they go to Trump hating statements. It's almost a phenomenon now. Then there's this painting in Canadian politics. They're taking Andrew Scheer and painting him now, and we're going to see this increase here in this run up to the election. They're painting Andrew Scheer now as right-wing, as not just well, he says he's a pragmatic centrist, but he's not being painted that way by the liberals. He's being painted as an extremist. And they keep, what was the, oh, right. I think it was a tweet where the now liberal paid off media came out and said that they are going to be Andrew Scheer's worst nightmare. They are the resistance. That's an example of that. They're not. And Andrew Scheer is not someone you would resist against. He's a big pudding boy, seriously. And then Rebel Media, our prime minister, comes out and says on numerous occasions that Rebel Media is divisive, that it's polarizing and fear-mongering, and they exclude them from media events, thereby excluding them as a way of using that societal shame thing we can do, and saying, you know, your association with them will be equated to being kicked out of the tribe, right? And normal, average Canadians see that. They're not looking for the deeper meaning. They don't understand the big picture because they're not looking at that, and they're mostly listening to mainstream media or CBC radio, and those are the talking points. So our conservative media is being equated as extremist out there, fringe, right? They're pushing us over there. Now, I talked about the Overton window in politics in a previous video, well, just in a mention, sort of, and I was thinking about it again, and in terms of what I'm talking about here with identity theft. And if you shift that window, it's not just in politics where everything changes. It changes in real life too. It actually has real life consequences. Now, having said that, they're doing this to our hope in turning the political game back to power in the hands of the people. And they work for us, they serve us, they are our representatives. By being involved in the political forum, that's where that has to happen. You can't just sit back and watch whatever on TV and ignore what's going on in Ottawa and in question period and what is happening in policy changes and legislature. We have a role to play in that, staying on track and not going off the rails. And that, I think, we're complicit and share the burden of what's currently happening to undermine our structure. And here in Canada right now, it's all of us play a part in that. We all took our eye off the ball, so to speak. So our chance here is having Maxime Bernier, the People's Party of Canada, who's done amazing things already. In less than 6 months, we have all the ridings, electoral districts established that we need in Canada to run the candidates for the next election. That's really awesome. We're raising money, we're getting awareness out there. He's still not getting a lot of media coverage, but he's certainly making up for coverage in terms of his dedication and outstanding tweets. I'm so impressed by that. And one excellent channel to watch for coverage of that is Canada Poly. He's covering Maxime tweets on a regular basis and doing a great job of it. So they also keep referring to, well, Stephen Harper did it too. It's kind of like a Liberal Party line now. And they do keep referencing Stephen Harper because there's just the memories and the aftertaste of his, even as a conservative, I could see where, there were tendencies towards changes. I think, what was that security bill, the C-51? I can't remember exactly. That made me nervous, and I was barely aware of any of this stuff back then. But anyway, they're painting everybody that's on the right into a very small classification, and they're labeling us there, and it's a big warning label like this is toxic and you need to stay away from it. And once they've done that and identified that, then they can conflate all kinds of things with it, and that keeps people scared away from it. When they take over words and meanings and they conflate them, and I mean, Google and DuckDuckGo, this year Google changed the definition of nationalist. And so the previous definition of nationalist, if you go to DuckDuckGo, you can still see what that is and compare it to the one with Google, I'll save you going there, is the word xenophobic is in it. It's changed. So they are literally changing the meanings of words to match the false reality that they are pushing. And that's identity theft. That's no different than somebody taking out a credit card in my name and going shopping. I'm not benefiting from it. I am, in fact, being harmed by that action. That's what I mean about real life consequences. So people who hear that are beginning to wake up, who hear these things and go looking for them now, will find them, but they'll find them on their sites. They'll find them under their articles. They'll find their talking points tweeted out by their people on Twitter and made into videos. They'll find their GIFs. They'll find their memes. That's what's happening. We're not separated on sides anymore. They've crossed over and they are taking our territory and our identity away from us. That's what's happening in this culture war right now. Another example last night, and I find this one very, very disturbing. It's a CBC news article covering CNN. And an anchor on CNN is giving a gumball demonstration using the gumballs as Trump's, I can't remember exactly what it was, his falsities or missteps during his term in office, or the things he promised or something like that. I can't remember exactly. Do you know why I can't remember? Because the gumball part is kind of where my brain stopped with a like, are you kidding me? And I immediately left that video and went and looked. And yes, what I immediately thought and felt in my gut, like, it's reality. So now when you enter gumball theory, it's not our brilliant professor talking about immigration and gumballs that comes up first under the Google search. It's now the CNN anchor talking about gumballs and Trump. Do you see what they did? Do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see how they are literally thieving the identity of true conservatives? It's not a joke. This is happening in the States and it's happening here in Canada. And it's accelerating. And we have 9 months now to the election. Just over. Forewarned is forearmed. I don't know what else I can do to help except continue to point out where I see it and when I see it and call it out and not allow them to get away with it. Secrets breed in darkness. You keep shining your light on it. That's what you have to do. We hear Justin Trudeau doing this all the time, every time he opens his mouth to talk about immigration, or any one of his peons that are speaking to it. They all do the same thing, and they're going to do it increasingly now that they've signed the compact on migration. They keep saying immigrant, migrant, mixing it up. The news is doing it as well. They are two separate things, two entirely different things, and a huge portion of Canada strongly identifies with immigrants as being the founding people of our country. We're founded on immigration. They're trying to take that away from us too by saying that. They're trying to paint the people who don't want migrants and people jumping across the border unvetted, unchecked, from who knows where, bringing who knows what to our country, and then not being counted on and not being followed up on and not assimilating and doing whatever they want. They're talking about that kind of person compared to my immigrant ancestors as being the same thing. Well, just because they want to paint my identity that way does not mean I will accept them doing that. And that's what I'm standing up and fighting for. That's what I'm speaking out against. And that's what I want other people to understand is happening in real life. It's not just on YouTube. It's not just on social media. Those things are an extension of the real world and what is really happening in our real culture, in our real lives, in our real communities, in our families. They're literally stealing our identity. And Trudeau announced it when he took office in 2015 and said Canadians don't have a core identity. Fuck that. I do so. And so do you, and you, and you, and you, and you. Stand up for it. Please, stand up for it. Don't let them get away with this. Call it out. Call it what it is. It's identity theft. And if the police won't help, then it becomes time for the people to take justice into their own hands. It doesn't get to pass. That is not the Canada I was born into. It's not the Canada I'm dying in. Forget about that. It is not happening on my watch. Okay. Easy Barbie out.